Wait! If that was you on the phone and you on the bus, then who was flickering the lights? Nosferatu!
Come closer, please. I've something to tell you. Ladies and gentlemen, how do you do? You are invited on a guided tour of a world of darkness, where nightmares become reality.
Blood and Black Rum Podcasts, Antholoween.
Hey guys, welcome back to the Blood and Black Rum Podcast. I'm Ryan from Coldsploitation.com, and I'm joined by my co-host Martin.
How's it going?
Pretty good. We're still we're deep into Antholoween now. We're actually hitting into the 6th episode of Antholoween, and one thing that's we're getting into now is that we're actually doing Halloween movies now. Like, the last 2 movies of Antholoween are literally going to be anthologies with Halloween in them, which is something that we haven't done yet on the show. And I'll leave it at that because, as you know, we've been doing eras. We've been doing, we started in the 60s, gone through the 70s, 80s, 90s was last week. And now we're in the 2000s, and that really only leaves one film.
And it's very 2000s.
Yes. There's only one film that's a Halloween anthology in the 2000s that I can think of.
VHS.
There's probably, I think there is Halloween in VHS, but this one is particularly surrounded, all of it, within Halloween. And that movie I'm talking about is Trick or Treat. And we should really pronunciate this. Trick-or-treat. Trick-or-treat.
Trick-dirt.
Not Trick or Treat. Trick or Treat is a different film from the 80s. It's about a rock star on Halloween night. That's a different film. We're talking about Trick or Treat.
So Trick or Treat from the 80s is like New Year's Evil.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah.
That's great.
Very similar.
Gonna have to see
We'll have to
that.
do that at some point. That'll be for another.
But it's the mid 2000s, so we got Trick or Treat, you know.
Yeah, it's more of like the Adirondack slang that we have. You just drop your letters and you just combine it all together. We're like the French, but a lot less refined sounding.
You know what's great is actually, speaking of just backwoods slang for us, you know the now popular angry white lady shouting and then the confused white cat? Like, you know, having like the...
Yeah, like the dinner,
that.
They're sitting at dinner shouting, and then the cat shouting, yeah.
Well, it doesn't even look like the cat's shouting. It looks like it's just puzzled. Like, it's like kind of...
Why are you yelling at me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they have one now. It's Creek! And the cat's like, Crick!
That's us. That's what we say.
Another one today that's for upstate New Yorkers only is Stewarts or Storts.
A lot of people listening to this show probably won't even get that. But... it's a fun grocery store / gas station / cafe / ice cream shop that we have in upstate New York. So yeah, Trick or Treat, one of my favorites, especially for the Halloween season. I've probably seen it 18 to 20 times. Watched it every year. In
fact, Ryan didn't even watch it this time.
Yeah. When Chiller was still a TV channel, I believe that they used to play Trick or Treat for 24 hours on Halloween, much like TBS has been airing A Christmas Story on Christmas for 24 hours. So Trick or Treat is like the Christmas Story of Halloween. even though you would think Halloween would be the Christmas story of Halloween. It's not. Trick or Treat has really become a big deal with horror fans throughout. Especially like when it first released, it wasn't as huge of a success. And
I don't even remember any promotion for it, to be honest with you.
Yeah, it was pretty low on the totem pole for promotion. I don't know that it ever actually had a theatrical release. I think it only released on film or on DVD and Blu-ray. And it just kind of had a quiet existence for a little while. And then people found it, saw it. If you're like me, you had already read the comic book version of it before you've seen the movie. And so it kind of blossomed into a big success for Michael Dougherty. So much so, in fact, that now Michael Dougherty basically releases an annual Halloween update every year of whether Trick or Treat 2 is coming. It's kind of like the new thing of like, is it coming? Is it not coming?
It's the Half-Life 3
basically.
Of movies.
Basically, yeah. And basically he did release one this year, actually, not too long ago, where he just said,
No,
he said he's open to doing a Trick or Treat 2. It's more so on the producers and production if they actually are going to do another one or not. He wrote another graphic novel for Trick or Treat, which is called Days of the Dead. It's probably not one of his better stories for Trick or Treat, but still, it exists. So hopefully if they do a Trick or Treat 2, they don't go in that route. But yeah, he's open for it, and it just depends on, how things work out in Californian film world. Maybe he's called to do another Godzilla movie. Who knows? Or maybe he just skips it all and just Krampus 2.
You mean Krampus?
Krampus. You had never seen Trick or Treat.
No.
Prior to this, which is surprising. I don't know how you've managed to go, it was released in like 2007,
Yeah,
12 years without seeing it. I don't understand it.
I honestly didn't even know about its existence until we started the podcast, and it was like one of the things you constantly would
Kept bringing up for Halloween, like, we gotta do Trick or Treat.
Gotta do Trick or Treat. And I was like,
I just don't see how you've missed it for so long.
Well, you know what? Now I'm in the fold.
You are. Like I said, it's one of my favorites. It's a fun time. And
I'll say this for the film. Calling it an anthology, very loose definition of the word anthology.
Actually what I was going to bring up, because this is one of those anthologies that we've not had on the show at all yet for Antholoween. An anthology that's not structured based on just specific stories. This is an anthology that tells stories interspersed with one another. And so you could call it an anthology. You could say that it's not an anthology and that it all just takes place on Halloween night and that it has more of a narrative.
I would almost say it's just non-linear storytelling.
I don't know. I mean, I think of it as an anthology because these are specific stories and they just intertwine. I think that makes it an anthology because you do have those specific segments to it.
4 separate, character stories.
Yeah.
No, you're right, but I mean, like, it's I would say, like, it's a very, very loose interpretation of what that word means.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you've seen a bunch of other anthologies, how the structure of this is completely different. Though I'll say, and probably as we go more into detail, I think the fact that it's wraparound story and how it all connects makes it, a unique way of telling that.
Yeah, I think it's definitely
enjoyable.
Definitely a unique way of telling an anthology story. As we've mentioned before, especially in the other films that we've covered, the wraparound stories can be weak because there's really, like, sometimes they don't have a wraparound story. It's just a guy telling stories. Sometimes they can be rather strong. You have Tales from the Crypt, which we covered, which had a kind of a fun wraparound story where everybody was telling their own story and then going to hell. So you can have both, and I think this is the first anthology film that we've come across that does a different type of wraparound story where they all kind of intermingle and mix. And one thing I will say is that these types of stories make it difficult to do a podcast on each of the stories because you're like, where do I start? Where do I begin? which stories do I cover first? So bear with us as we try to work through each of the stories, since they're so mixed together. We might jump around a little bit. But yeah, I think this is a really interesting anthology, and I'm glad that we get to cover it on here because it does have that uniqueness to it that makes it different from the other anthologies that we've done.
And I think also too, because it's the same setting, same time frame, that's what also again makes really is stretching your the traditional sense of what an anthology is, because anthologies are their own separate and stories with their own timelines and settings and characters. This has different stories with different characters, but it's all in the same setting, same time frame, same timeline. And which again makes it like I said, it's a very just kind of Tarantino-esque and how it's non-linear, jumping back and forth from different things.
One thing too that I'll say is that we're making the distinction that it's an anthology, or actually just including it in Antholoween. Whereas I'm not saying the film itself thinks of itself as an anthology or a narrative or whatever. That doesn't really have, and it doesn't really matter what the film thinks of it as. We're categorizing it as an anthology loosely here, just so that we can do it on the show for Antholoween. But no matter what, it's not really important to put it into a box. Doesn't matter.
Well, seeing as I haven't, because I had no prior knowledge of this film, and then the fact that there's comics and graphic novels based off, I'd say based off the opening, to me, just as a general film watcher, the whole Creepshow-esque opening, that to me seems like it's an homage to Creepshow.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and we should say too that the comic did not exist prior to the film. So it's in a lot of ways like Creepshow, where Creepshow had a film and it was loosely based on EC Comics stuff like Tales from the Crypt, and then kind of influenced a comic later on. The same thing is true of Trick or Treat. It didn't start out as a comic. The comic was made for the film, and then later on they kind of adapted it into comic form. So yeah, in a lot of ways it is like Creepshow. I think that was certainly an inspiration for Michael Dougherty, and
it could be because Warner Brothers made the film. They're probably like, Michael, we're not going to let you make another film, but we own DC Comics.
Yeah.
How about you just write a fucking couple of graphic novels for us?
Yeah, actually, they were released by Legendary. And he did a Krampus one as well, which I have. So,
was that a DC Comics subsidiary? Or?
I think their own subsidiary, and they also do film. So yeah, so good to know. But I just wanted to put that out there. The graphic novel exists, but it was created after the Trick or Treat film. And actually, Michael Dougherty mostly based Trick or Treat on a prior short that he did, like an animated short, with Sam, the pumpkin-headed Halloween spirit being that exists within his film in pretty much every tale that he tells. There was a short film that he did and kind of wanted to expand on that narrative from there, and thus Trick or Treat was born. So, yeah. Good tidbits.
I like to call Sam Brag Boy.
Brag Boy.
Brag Boy.
Taking that from Steve Brule. All right.
From Bag Boy starring Steve Brule.
Steve Brule. All right, so let's take a break. We'll talk about the beer that we have on the show this week, because I did pick out a special one for this episode. As you know, we've been trying to get away from the Oktoberfest a little bit. We've been doing a Halloween theme for all of our beers. We did quite a few weeks of Oktoberfest, and at a certain point, it becomes difficult to just talk about another Oktoberfest. It's an Oktoberfest.
And the fact our winters are already coming out, so.
Yep. But I did find a beer that was thematically resonant for our show that was not an Oktoberfest. And it's Great Lakes Nosferatu Imperial Red Ale.
You mean Nosferatu?
Nosferatu. If I remember, I'll put that sound clip in here as well after.
I don't know why, but it's just one of my favorite SpongeBob moments.
It's because he just says it was such a nonplussed way.
Well, not only that, but it's just so weird. Because it's like the Halloween episode about the hash slinging slasher, and at the end they get scared, and then Nosferatu pops out, and they're just like Nosferatu. And it's not even like an animated one. They just took
the actual Max Shrek Nosferatu. Yeah, I know. It's a great moment. I think it's just because it is so random and weird, and it's a nice ode to Halloween with because that episode, yes, it's spooky and scary for a SpongeBob episode, but it's not particularly Halloween-y, so they wanted to throw a reference in there to give it that special feeling, I think.
I do like, too, for the episode, the SpongeBob episode, with the Nasty Patty, when they make them, for the food inspector, the nastiest Krabby Patty they can, try to to try to scare him off, and they show, a close-up of the burger, and the way they, drew the burger looks like something from, Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark.
Oh, right, yeah.
They, got that, artwork that, that's pretty, I love that, too. Yeah. Little off the beaten path here, but who doesn't love SpongeBob?
So the Great Lakes Nosferatu Imperial Red Ale is a specialty beer that they make. I think we had Great Lakes on the show once before. I think we had their Oktoberfest on the show.
We've had their Oktoberfest and we've done their White Christmas.
The White Christmas Winter, yeah. And so they are from I want to say Minnesota,
Michigan.
Michigan. That's where it is. And they make some pretty good beers that they have a lot of different beers. They don't stick to one idea. They tend to jump around a little bit. And so this is one of their specialties for obviously the Halloween season.
Around here we usually get I think there's all year round ones. So I see it constantly, like the Edmund Fitzgerald Porter and the I think Sea Captain IPA or something.
Yeah,
and
we get a couple of regular ones, and then
the Pilsner they have too. So
yeah, and then some that we just kind of random ones that they make that we've gotten before. This Nosferatu Imperial Red Ale is obviously an Imperial Red Ale. It's 8%. It's got a nice coppery color on the pour because I did pour it out just to see how red it actually was.
70 IBUs, I think it says on the bottle.
Yes, it's actually on the hoppier side.
Which would almost make you think it's like an Imperial Red IPA.
Yeah. Yep. It is. It's certainly on the palate. You get that hoppiness to it. Nice malty taste, caramel. You know what? One thing about it though is that the 8% does not come through in the taste of being overly alcoholic, which sometimes can happen to your Imperials. They tend to get that late
especially if you
taste.
get an Imperial Stout, like a Russian Imperial Stout or something like that.
Yeah, you get that and I won't say that it's unpleasant, but it's a byproduct of having a higher alcohol content is that you do get that sort of harsh alcohol taste towards the end, which I don't think is anybody's goal. And so this actually gets around that. And if you've listened to us before, we enjoy red ales quite a bit. They're one of our favorite styles. And I particularly enjoy this Imperial Red Ale. A little bit on the sweet side, but with that hoppy balance to it and a nice malt character underneath.
I would say very biscuity, very bready. Mm-hmm. Gives it a nice sweetness to it. I think the fact that it's Imperial, it does let the hops, be very pronounced, but at the same time, not enough to where you would say, that's not an Imperial Red. It's like an Imperial Red IPA. It doesn't really come across as a Red IPA.
Right.
I think it strikes a nice balance with the heavy malts and also a nice hoppiness, though, that's crisp and, makes it a nice, refreshing. Even at as high in, as biscuity and sweet as it is, it's a very palatable, nice, you can, take a couple slugs of it, and
yeah.
It's not like last week with the maple bourbon, the 1911 maple bourbon cider where you're whew, slowly sipping at it. Even though it's 8%, you can still kind of take a few glugs and you're like, oh, that's refreshing.
Yeah. Yeah, I enjoy this one. I would definitely get it again. Kind of reminds me of the Sam Adams Tasman Red, if you remember that one from.
Definitely not as IPA though.
Yeah, because that was a red IPA, but it's kind of similar in that sense, and definitely fits the season as well. Nosferatu, right on the box. So
I like the artwork. It's very that nice red color that they add to
the artwork is nice. Check this one out if you can find it. It is on the expensive side. It's a 4-pack of bottles for about $11.99. So that is on the expensive side for something like this, but at the same time, I think it was worth the price for sure.
I'd agree. I generally, even though I like Imperials, I kind of stay away from them just because they're always a crapshoot. Like on how well they're going to balance like that high alcohol content with, the actual flavor of the beer.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's one of the reasons. And they're always more expensive, so one of the reasons why I generally stay away from like, if we're at like beer fest, sample all of them all day, why not? But actually going out and buying them.
Yeah, because you just don't know what you're going to get for that price.
Yeah.
Like, I hope I end up liking this for, $14 after tax and everything.
Yeah.
So,
but this is a good choice. I would say pick it up.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so getting into Trick or Treat. It's hard to know where to start with Trick or Treat. So I think we'll just start at the beginning with that first opening story. We have... Actually, this takes place later in the evening on Halloween, as the graphic shows you. This sort of like comic-esque graphic that says later up at the top. And you have a robot and, what's that guy? I don't even know. What is that guy's costume?
I don't even
A
know what the
ninja?
fuck he was. I thought he was
pirate?
like some like medieval like
A knight?
page boy or something.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'm not sure exactly what he is. Yeah.
I was wondering why that wasn't Matthew Lillard because it looked like low rent Matthew Lillard.
Yeah, it does actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. But they're coming home from their Halloween party. They're tuckered out, or at least the wife is. And she's being a total bitch.
She hates Halloween.
She hates Halloween. She wants to just pull down all the decorations. Because they got some nice looking decorations. They got ghost summonings, Ouija boards outside, and nice orange lights all over the place. Got pumpkins lit.
A little bit Ku Klux Klan-y with crosses and sheets over them.
Yeah, maybe a little bit.
Could have probably done something different.
In the middle, they're burning an effigy. Yeah. No, but so she's basically taking down all the shit. She's like, you know what? You go and you watch your porn, knight/page boy. Go upstairs and watch your porn labeled the nature special. And I'll take down all these Halloween decorations.
Which is funny, because even though... I don't know when this was filmed. I think from what I saw, it got delayed on release. So
it did, yeah.
So, because it doesn't look like... It doesn't quite look like 2007. It still looks like it's... We're in the nice... Costas Mandalore years of Saw with, the way people look.
Yeah, I think it was more like 2005 probably that this was actually filmed.
So even at that point, there's still, LimeWire is still a thing, but you don't need VHS,
Yeah. So the whole thing is that, obviously you get this idea that it's not okay to just, there's rituals at play on Halloween night right away. You know that, they mention it. And so she is taking down all these decorations, and that's not okay on Halloween. It's not over yet. So you don't do anything on Halloween night to just disturb the ritual, because otherwise...
You're going to piss the spirits off.
Yeah, you're going to get murdered violently by a very sharp lollipop candy thing.
I haven't seen those, pumpkin lollipops in years.
It's
probably been 20 years since when I was a kid trick-or-treating. The last time I've seen a pumpkin lollipop.
I don't know if I've ever seen the ones that Sam has in this movie where it's the
jack-o'-lantern.
The literal candy, Jolly Rancher type candy. I remember seeing the chocolate jack-o'-lanterns that were actually white chocolate that were on popsicles at fairs and stuff. But I don't know if I've ever seen a popsicle like that with a jack-o'-lantern on it. That I know of.
I think I have. Like I said, it's got to be 20 years.
Sure. I mean, and probably that's true. And I'm sure Michael Dougherty based all of that on nostalgia of stuff from his Halloween past. So that makes sense. But I've just never seen one myself that was like that. But that's a pretty a nice, brutal opening moment for Trick or Treat to get that right before the opening credits occur. And you know what? It sets a nice tone for the film. It's you know what? Bitches who don't like Halloween, they're getting killed.
You're getting snuffed out.
That's right. Like a jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah, just like you snuffed out the candle on that jack-o'-lantern.
Yeah.
I did like the nice little Halloween homage when we see that POV shot from Sam's perspective.
Underneath the mask and the bag.
I lied. Wait, no, is it Halloween or Halloween 2 I'm thinking of?
Of what?
For the
With the mask on?
Yeah.
Well, you see that in the first Halloween as Michael is going up the stairs and, murdering his sister.
Okay, yeah. So
At the beginning of the film.
For a second, I was thinking that was only in Halloween 2.
No, I mean, you get that. You certainly do get that. Because you do, like, in that sense, both of them have sort of that obstruction over the camera. The bag in this one or the mask that's sort of obstructing the peripheral vision in Halloween.
You get the heavy breathing.
Yes.
Yeah. Point is, nice homage.
It is.
Whatever film it came from.
That's right. Then you get your opening credits sequence, which is the comic that's been designed specifically for Trick or Treat, which is a nice reference to Creepshow, as we talked about. Definitely a good graphic design for that. And then you're into the first stories.
I like, too, that everything's bright orange.
Oh,
the
yeah.
Color palette, not just, like, throughout the opening credits and the end credits, but throughout the entire film, it's constantly, like, orange. Because it's got that mid-2000s, like, everything's gray.
Yeah, the tinge.
Yeah, that gray, like, everything's got to be in grayscale, but... And then they add, like, either greens or blue, like, neon greens or blues to it. But here, they're like, gonna do an orange.
Yeah.
Because it's Halloween.
Absolutely.
So, that's nice. I
Gotta have that filter.
That is nice.
So the first story that we get is the story of the fat little kid who's smashing pumpkins.
Now, is that the same kid from Bad Santa?
That's a good question. I really don't know that answer. I'd have to look at it. If I have enough internet access, I will look it up right now. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but
well, he looks like the kid from Bad Santa. I don't know if it is the kid from Bad Santa or not, but that's what he looks like.
He does, yeah. He does look like that. He's got that curly, poofy blonde hair. Yeah.
But he's just a little... Compared to him Bad Santa, where he's good-hearted, if that is the kid, he's just a little shithead here.
That's right.
Just knocking everyone's jack-o'-lanterns off the...
You know what? That's the ultimate taboo for me. I would also violently murder that kid by poisoning him with candy if he smashed my jack-o'-lanterns. It's ridiculous. You know what? You spend a lot of time on those jack-o'-lanterns. Sometimes you get a jack-o'-lantern, you get a pumpkin that's just absolutely very rigid, and you can't cut into it because it's so pulpy inside. And you know what? You spend so much time on those, you don't want to see a little shithead smash that pumpkin. I want to smash it after Halloween. So, yeah, I can totally see where Stephen Wilkins is coming from here.
And then when the kid goes up to Stephen Wilkins' door and the sign says, just take one candy, he's just wadding it all in his bag, and he gets caught by him.
You know what? That is exactly... He doesn't know limits, right? I mean, this kid doesn't know limits. You can eat one candy bar. You can't eat 7 candy bars. It's just a little bit too much. Might be why he's a little overweight.
Listen, shouldn't be giving out, like, giant candy bars to begin with.
That's true. That's setting a bad precedent.
Yeah, it is. So you can't be yelling at him, for dangling it out there. Any child would have been like, you got fucking whole-size Snickers just lying around? Yeah.
I'm grabbing that one.
Thank you,
But one thing that I do like about this whole scenario is that this is a lot of thought process for this Stephen Wilkins to go through. Because he's a principal. And so he's got to be, like, planning this out. Like, starting at the beginning of September when school is in session, he's like, you know what? I'm fucking sick of these fucking kids. What do I want to do? All right, that's perfect. I'm going to poison candy for Halloween and give it to the biggest shitheads in the school.
It would have been kind of nice if it was like razors or something.
Well, that appears later on.
I was going to say, because you hear that like all the time, like, like people are putting razors in candy. No, they're not.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the memes you see on like online now of like,
they're putting their edibles in.
Yeah. No one's doing that.
Yeah. No, the razor thing has always been an urban legend. And it's never actually been proven that anybody's ever done that.
I don't even understand the logistics of how you would do that.
You'd have to like cut the wrapper slightly, stick the razor in.
No, but even if like you bit into the candy bar, and no matter how much nougat and caramel or whatever's in that candy bar, you're gonna be like, there's metal there.
No, it's for the dumbest kids only. The kids are like, this is really hard.
Just swallow the whole thing.
They just keep going.
Oh,
yeah.
It's an almond. Don't worry. It's a.
I think the biggest thing that would happen is like, this unpleasantly cut my gums a little bit, like floss, and you'd be like, fuck, what is this metal piece? Yeah. But yeah, I think it would just be like at the most unpleasant for a little bit. And you're like, fucking razors.
I think the kid threw up because that candy bar was like a Take 5 or something. He knew like shit. He's like, oh shit,
damn, I grabbed
bar.
the wrong one. I meant to grab the Milky Way. I grabbed the
Mr. Good Bar.
Yeah,
oh fuck.
Yeah, I grabbed the cheap knockoff instead. Yeah, that could be. Yeah, that's why Stephen Wilkins looks so surprised. He's like, what happened? Oh, that's right. I got the $2 bag, 10-pound bag of candy.
Sidebar here. It's a trick or treat. It is a trick. Not doesn't have to do with the movie, but it is a Halloween trick or treat thing. Hershey's or Mars? What's the better candy?
Give me an example of what a Mars would be like as a
M&M's, Snickers, Milky Way, Three Musketeers.
Mars is Milky Way?
Yes.
Oh, Mars by far then, because Milky Way is my favorite.
Yeah,
candy.
all like a lot of people don't realize this because they don't sell Mars bars here, like they do in like the UK and shit. They still call them like Mars bars. They don't have them, like, it's like their version of the Milky Way.
I actually never thought of like who makes Milky Way. I like doesn't even ring a bell to me. So like Mars, I didn't really put it together, but yes, Mars.
Because Hershey chocolate is fucking fugazi garbage. Like, Hershey's milk chocolate is crap. Mr. Goodbars.
Those are fighting words. Somewhere, someone is listening to this show and they're like, that Martin is a fucking idiot. I'm never listening to Blood and Black Rock podcast again.
Mr. Goodbars, crap. Mr. Crackles, you know what? Crap. I kind of like them because I like Crunch Bars, which are made by Nestle, who also do Butterfingers. Hershey's literally the lowest ranked candy. The only thing they have is Reese's. You know what? Literally the only thing they have. Everything else they do is crap.
You know what you're doing? You're shitting on someone's entire childhood. Where like someone like was literally only a Hershey's only family. They're like, I love Hershey's.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to tell you, but you lived a lie.
How is there any Mars theme park? I don't think so. It's only Hershey, Pennsylvania.
Because they don't need it. Because they know their M&Ms are better than fucking whatever the hell Hershey's got.
Whatever that's... Yeah.
Granted, Mars is starting to drift into the territory of pissing me off with every M&Ms now being like Oreos. They got every fucking flavor under the sun, but
Honestly, as long as they have Milky Way, Mars wins. Because Milky Way is like way up here.
Yeah, and Snickers is even better because it's good.
I don't like Snickers because I don't eat peanuts, but...
Yeah, well...
So that's probably it then. You're right. That kid probably ate a Hershey's bar.
You should run that up the poll. Make that the poll. What's better?
Hershey's or Mars?
Yeah.
But yeah, that's why that kid got sick. But it's a nice opening storyline because it's quick, it's easy, it makes sense, it's kind of fun because like you said, it's sort of like an offshoot of the razor blades in the candy. Razor blades in the candy comes up later on. It's like the end part of the last story. But this one is sort of like an offshoot where you can kind of imagine this might happen. A little bit easier to imagine. You could inject a candy bar a little bit easier with, poison or rat poison or,
whatever he is.
Yeah, coolant or anything like that and just, go to town. And this one makes a little bit more sense. And then you also get that really great shot of the kid just barfing his brains out of chocolate all over the place and like a Hershey fountain. Fondue fountain.
Yeah, I was gonna say I couldn't tell. Like if I thought at first it was supposed to be it was chocolate that he was throwing up, but then afterwards when he's inside and like still coughing, it's blood.
And he's got the blood on his shirt and stuff.
Yeah, so it's like I'm like, wait, is he throwing up blood the entire time?
To think about this because I've seen the movie so many times, and yes, that has come up for me. And my thought process is that yes, originally he's throwing up the chocolate because you're throwing up the first contents of your stomach, and at that point, after that, he's starting to hemorrhage up through his throat because he's throwing up so much, so he's throwing up blood, and that would be my thought process behind that. Because if you're throwing up violently so much, after a certain point, like your esophagus and everything starts to become raw, and then you're throwing up blood. So that's my take on that, but. Yes, it's not entirely clear. I think at first he's throwing up chocolate. But the scene is set in the dark, so you can't really tell, if the fluid is just dark like, red blood or, if it's chocolate. I think it's chocolate at first.
So now what we have to mention too is as he's dragging the child's lifeless body in the house, he gets some unexpected visitors at the door.
That's right. We have our first crossover here with the kids that will turn up in another story, the school bus story. And they're doing a pumpkin drive for UNICEF, which is funny. I don't know that UNICEF is so popular anymore. I know a lot of people have nostalgia for like UNICEF commercials around Halloween. Things that used to pop up,
like the bags, like the UNICEF.
Yep, UNICEF bags, and like be safe on Halloween. Like here's a flashlight and stuff like that. I don't remember it so much. I think this was, it was even before our time so much. I do remember one UNICEF commercial that we used to watch in like kindergarten. Other than like it was like a safety commercial for trick or treating. Other than that, though, I don't really remember UNICEF so much. But like I said, I don't know that they have much of a presence anymore as like a company that shows up and is like all about trick or treating safety. But
it's not a company; it was a charity.
Yeah, it's a charity. Right. But so I don't recall it so much, but definitely makes sense for this. So yeah, they show up in this, and you get your little crossover there. It's kind of nice, little I guess a preview of what's to come in this movie. With another segment.
Now, after that, when he's struggling with this child's dead body, he's dragging him out into a nice little grave that he's dug for the boy, and we get another crossover.
Yeah, this is like a major one because this one actually turns up again. Literally, like the scene itself turns up again in the final episode. In this show, or in this, I don't know why I keep saying that, but in this movie, and so you've got the major crossover, and then like I said, those kids they turn up. This is that's the only appearance that you see of them stopping at the Wilkins door. So it's like you've got your minor crossover, and then you've got your major crossover with an event that actually takes place later on in the film. So that's sort of like a bookend, which is really nice. I think I like that they. Included that as like a crossover that you see two times. Now they do it in a good way too. Like you don't want it to be such a crossover where literally the same events happen twice on screen, because then you're just repeating yourself. So they do it in a way where you're not watching the same footage as the events occur. You're seeing it from one perspective and then you're seeing it from another perspective. And it's not like the same footage just shown again, which I think would be problematic if it was like, especially in an 80-minute film like this, where you had two of the same scenes repeating. Yeah. So I like that they don't do that. But we also get to meet Steven's child, who is a very annoying little boy. And played up for laughs on purpose, because you're trying to get... Yeah, you're trying to get that cute little like annoyance
scam,
which might actually explain why Stephen Wilkins is the way that he is. Sort of killing off children. He's a principal. He sees the worst in people at school. Then he comes home and his child's a little asshole as well.
We're gonna carve the pumpkin.
So
I need help with the eyes.
I like that it gives context and that it also kind of hints that he might want to kill his child at night. And so you get that nice little conclusion to the story where they're going to carve the pumpkin, and you're kind of watching as he pulls out the knife, and you're like, is he going to stab his kid? What's going to happen? And then he ends up stabbing the head of the other kid that he killed,
Charlie.
And that's I like that happens as a reveal. I don't know that the reveal is particularly effective. Like, I don't know that if watching it from the first time, if you're really thinking that he's killing his kid, but I like that kind of fade away out and showing, this psychopath is also teaching his kid to be a psychopath.
Now, I think his son's Damien.
yeah, he's already like poised to be the Antichrist.
Yeah, you just hear in the background, Rick knows, dummy knows. You don't,
true.
But I mean, like, the way, like,
Yeah. They're already setting
brings a
that
whole
up.
new meaning to, like, I need help carving the eyes.
Yeah, it's a cool little thing. It's a cool little, making a head into a jack-o'-lantern. I like that.
I like that, like, apparently he does this all the time and nobody in town fucking knows. none the wiser.
Just every year another kid goes missing.
I don't
know.
It's like, that kid was a little shit. Who knows where he went?
I like to think that everybody else in town is just like Halloween. Ooh, be careful. And you know what? Weird things happen on Halloween. November 1st, they all go back to normal. They're like, who didn't make it?
It's like the purge.
It's like the purge, except it's just Halloween. Yeah. I like thinking about it like that. Anything else you want to add about that first story before we move on?
I like the fact that it's got a nice sadistic comedic tone to it. Like,
does,
you
yeah.
know, the dog like barking underneath the fence, and he's like, "Fucking dog!" and he like cuts the kid's finger off. Which the way that finger was flopping around, and it literally looked like just like lopped his weenie off. It was
I'm
like
pretty sure they didn't go with 12-year-old's penis in that.
Well, I know, but the way like that finger wasn't, just like it was like,
Gelatinously waving.
Yeah.
I get you.
And then, like, the kid wakes up. He's still not dead. You just see, like, as he's talking to his neighbor.
Some slapstick in there.
Just, like, kicking, punting him,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good scene.
Maybe you should have cut his head off. And if you're going to carve it in your house anyway, maybe you should have cut it off while you were in there to begin with. And
Messy.
And then just throw the body.
Messy.
Yeah. Did he drain it, like, all the blood out, like, in the kid's head before,
Maybe. I don't know. The second story, you have a little interlude where you just have like a story of the parade happening, which is, I should say, frankly awesome. I wish that we had a massive Halloween parade.
Yeah,
that
you would have been the drum line.
Looks like Louisiana's Mardi Gras. And I wish we had that. But during that parade, you also see the vampire guy who's making out with
some random chick
at the parade. And all of a sudden, he turns into he starts biting her and becomes a abuser, I should say. And I like that whole scene where it pans out, where she's like sort of scared and she's hoping to go out to the parade and find somebody to help save her. And then she sees everybody looks like they're all bloodied and, in some sort of gore. So she's like, fuck. You know what?
And that whole, like, her running down the alleyway and stuff with the parade and shit going on. I don't know if it's intentional or not, but nice little homage to I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Mm-hmm.
With the whole parade going on.
And the guy with the hood.
Yeah.
Yeah, stuff like that. But I like that whole scene because, like, there's that final moment where she succumbs to her fate. Then he lays her down in on the side of the street next to a building and just closes her eyes. And then you see it pans out and you see other people that are doing the same thing, but they're sleeping off, they're drunk. It's a nice little moment because it does show you like the dangers of Halloween when you go out and, everybody is in gore. Everybody's bloody. So, it's the perfect time to commit a crime.
So we learned from Scream 2.
Yeah.
Stab her in the movie theater.
Yep.
She's already been loud and obnoxious. Everyone's going to be thinking like, it's all just part of the show.
Yeah, it's sort of the same ideas. Like on Halloween, it's all part of the show and you don't really know what's real and what's not. So I like that little interlude as well. It's not really a story per se. It's just like a little filler part before you get into the next story. But I like that all the same. Then the next story is about the kids that we see previously, who are
stop at another house to get another jack-o'-lantern from
their teacher.
Is that what she is?
Yeah, yeah. They like see all their their teachers in that party, and they're kind of mortified by seeing.
No, it's great. The two girls are mortified. The young boy's like, "What's going?"
Yeah,
like tilting his head because she's like sitting there, like she's wearing a cat suit and she's like shaking her tits and her ass in front of them, like, "Come on in. You want a drink? I won't tell anyone."
She probably just popped some ecstasy. She's just like, whatever. Yeah.
And then the one kid, like, they look behind there, and there's a hot dog, like...
grinding up against another animal.
Fucking a pig. Because the kids are trying to sort it out. It was great. The Chip, the boy pirate, he's like, the hot dog was butt-fucking a pig.
Yeah. So fun seeing sexual harassment from your teachers. So this one is it's the same kids that showed up at Stephen Wilkins' house. This time they're collecting pumpkins. They're picking up Rhonda, who they call Rhonda the retard, who's a girl who's seems like she might be a little bit autistic.
No, they call her an idiot.
Yeah.
Savant.
Yeah, and she's obsessed with Halloween, which I can totally relate to.
Yeah, when she rattled off that it's Samhain,
Samhain.
the Celtic celebration, and it's been around for. I'm like, yeah, that's 13-year-old Ryan.
Yeah, that's right. And not only that, but she hand carved all of her jack-o'-lanterns. She's got like 200 jack-o'-lanterns on her lawn, and that's impressive.
What do you think her parents said?
Yeah.
Where did they get all that?
Honestly, think about the price of that. Even if you think about Walmart right now has medium-sized jack-o'-lanterns for $328. $328 times 200 is a lot of money.
$700.
Yeah. And just think about the logistics of that, and then think about the logistics of you have to hand carve the pumpkins, but you can't start too early on pumpkins because if you start too early, they do rot. And you get to a point where you have to do them all in a certain period of time. So she just spent, hours and hours and hours carving pumpkins. I love it. I wish my house was like that. I want somebody to do that for me. I want to hire like a jack-o'-lantern carving company. And somebody should make this if there isn't one. Where it's just like, a force of 50 people who jump out of their van with jack-o'-lanterns, just start carving on your property. And then just putting them up. It's like sort of like people who like the florist shops who deliver you flowers and like put your flowers out with mums and stuff for the holidays. And they deliver it and they put it on your business front steps and stuff. Same thing, but with jack-o'-lanterns. So just like all kinds of jack-o'-lanterns. I'd pay a lot of money for that. I mean, I don't mind carving pumpkins. It just takes a lot of time. So I would like someone to do it for me. It'd be perfect.
I can't stand the smell.
Yeah, the smell is a little off-putting.
Ugh.
And also, lighting all of those pumpkins, too, would be hell. Because if it's windy outside, think about lighting birthday candles. You're like, fuck, I only have 12 candles and 8 had blown out already. Now, the same thing, but you have 200 jack-o'-lanterns to light. That's a lot.
In this part of Ohio, it's not that windy.
Yeah, right. So they pick up Rhonda. They go to the.
I will say the way she's kind of dressed, again, because I think this film has nice little homages to other like horror films and Halloween stuff. She looks like the girl from Hocus Pocus.
Yeah, she does actually. Yep. Yeah, the little girl from Hocus Pocus.
Yeah.
I can't remember her name, but I'm sure my wife would know it. She does. She does look like that, like the witch costume.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's a good touch. So they go to a little cliff area.
They go to a quarry.
That's right.
One, how long of a hike was this for these little bastards? Yeah, you know what we're going to do on our Halloween night? We're going to hike 10 miles out to the quarry. This is good old days when, parents just let their kids fuck off. And like, where's Billy? I don't fucking know. He'll be back.
And also when Halloween night was never ending. Like you just there's no trick or treat curfew. There's no 6 to 8.
I was gonna say, here's the thing. You always got pissed off with Halloween movies because every time they do trick or treat, it's always in broad daylight.
Yeah, that's true.
That's one of your biggest pet peeves when it comes to the original Halloween.
We were just watching E.T. yesterday. And in E.T., they're going trick-or-treating at 4 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah, well, I was going to say, now I think about it, at least around here, the trick-or-treat curfew is 5 to 7.
6 to 8 for, certain areas, 5 to 7 for others, yeah.
Yeah, so it's
5 o'clock, it is literally just getting dark. It may not even be dark yet. That's why I only go to the locations that have 6 to 8 trick-or-treating, because it's dark by then. It's dusky.
I know, but in this town, it seems like it's almost 11:30, and they're like, "Hey, everyone's still running around."
Yeah, it does. Yeah, you don't really get a good sense of time as to when each of the stories are happening. So I would guess the first stories when we have the earlier moniker are 7 o'clock, something like that, and then later is 9 o'clock, because that would make sense in the scheme of things. So they go to the quarry, and then Marcy tells a story of a busload of kids that were sort of the the special needs kids who were shipped off on a bus trip where the driver was told to just basically get rid of them. You know, do what you got to do, but get rid of them.
Well, they rode this bus constantly.
Yeah,
that was their bus. You know, there's
and the parents were like, and one day they had enough.
Well, because it looked like they went back to simpler times, the 50s, and that sounds about right. Like,
but can you imagine like just trying to come up with that plan? Like you're one parent and you're like, I think I'm going to talk to the other parents about sending our kids down a quarry.
Well, you know what? It's
coming up with that idea.
Oh, you want to fucking throw your kid off the quarry too? Me too.
Me too. They're all getting together for lemonade.
That little shit, you know, I can't take the fact that, you know, he's needs, you know. But then again, it looks like it's the 50s, so they're probably like, yeah, you know what?
I imagine what happened was they were all bonding over hating black people. And then they said, you know what? Our kids are special needs and I'm sick of them too. And so that was when they were all like, yeah, we're on the same page. Let's get rid of them all. But yeah,
we have a nice time. You know what though? It's kind of like Nightmare though. Where all the parents get together and fucking get Freddy, kill him. They're like, all right, we'll never speak of this again.
Yeah, that's exactly, but I just imagine, like, the conversation that must have occurred to set this all in motion.
I like the fact that the kids are chained on the bus.
Yeah.
They're sitting there, and they're not seatbelted in, they're chained in.
It's because they're you know, in the time where it was the mental sanatorium, and that's what these kids basically needed to go to, is a sanatorium.
Just imagine that like school board meeting. All right, all in favor of passing the measure to add funds to change for the retarded children, say aye. Aye, okay, measure passes.
Yeah.
Can't trust them with seatbelts.
Not after Eddie was hung out the window with the seatbelt. Yeah. So you have the bus driver. They plummet off the quarry. It's a nice flashback scene. And like you were talking about, all of this flashback, you know, you normally think of a flashback as being like in this very grayish, bluish tint. And in this case, it's orange. It's like particularly orange tint for the flashback sequence. And you have this little tidbit that sort of gets you ready for the rest of the stories, where you have the driver who is reportedly never seen again, but you see him get out of the lake.
Well, he doesn't drive it off. One of the kids is able to slip out because he knows they didn't go the right way home, and he wants to go home. Yep. And then he just hops in the seat and floors it into
the quarry. Yeah,
and because they're all chained, the kids didn't, you know,
they don't make it. And you also have that nice, that element where all their masks float up to the surface of the lake.
Is it me or is one of the kids' masks like they were trying to be like the one spirit from like Spirited Away? The white mask with like the red stripes on the sides.
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean. You know. Yeah, I like this whole thing because a lot of it too is, you know, there's always a taboo of killing kids in movies.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're like, whatever. Kids are gonna die. So I like that whole aspect. And then you have Marcy and the rest of the kids who go down to the quarry.
One, where'd they get the key to operate the
elevator on the quarry?
Two, that quarry looks like it's been abandoned for 50 years.
Yeah.
How is that thing even still functional?
I don't know. You're thinking too much logistics of it. It's magical Halloween night. Sam did it all. Sam was the one that
was just like,
yeah. Go on down, kids. But you have Rhonda, who is not privy to all of the information about this, and they actually end up scaring her half to death because they pretend like they're the kids from the bus who are coming back from the grave. And then ultimately, the kids actually do come back from the grave, slithering out of the lake and ripping apart all of the kids, and Rhonda makes it out alive.
Because she said, fuck all of you.
Yeah, basically. She uses her knowledge of Halloween by lighting the pumpkins and keeping them around her as a mystical shield. And she makes it out alive. And
I do feel, out of all the kids, I feel bad for Schrader. Because he at least, you know, was like, this is bad idea.
I think you're supposed to feel bad for Schrader, but then also you're supposed to be like, well, he did go along with Marcy and the rest of them. You know, he's still an asshole.
But he had redemptive qualities.
Well,
Marcy's a total bitch. She's like, like borderline. I'd say borderline sociopath the way she acts. You know,
she is a sociopath. I think that one of the interesting things about Trick or Treat is that it doesn't really have redemption for its characters. It's sort of a bleak storyline altogether.
They're all miserable.
Yeah, most of them don't really have redemptive elements to them. Or even if they try to redeem themselves, it doesn't really matter.
Well, you could even say the same thing about Rhonda then, because of the fact she's like 5 fuckers and just
I think the only
you don't see the kids get slaughtered, but as she's raising up in the elevator, you hear them getting slaughtered.
Yeah. The only reason why Rhonda survives is because she adheres to the rules of Halloween. So she keeps her jack-o'-lanterns lit. She doesn't kick them into the water.
Sam was watching on.
That's right.
He's giving the warm side of the door.
He is. He's giving that little nod.
He's getting
yes. Good job. Good job.
You get it. You understand.
Yeah. So Rhonda is the one that makes it out alive, and she adheres to the rules of Halloween, and so she gets it. But anybody even who has redemptive qualities, who, like Schrader, who tried to help her and stuff like that, they still get the dark ending. And that comes up later on, especially in the last part of the last storyline with Brian Cox, which we'll talk about in a little bit. No one really, even if they try to redeem themselves, they don't get a good happy ending, which I think is interesting about Trick or Treat. One of the things that I think is really interesting too about Sam, that he shows up in like these opening storylines, he doesn't really have a lot to do with them though. Like he's not the main
villain, antagonist.
Yeah, he's not. He's like there. He's on the outskirts. You can see that he has a presence, but he's not an actual like antagonist that does the killing or the murders. It's always something else that gets the people in those first stories. So I think that's interesting too.
He's just the spirit of Halloween, guiding like ooh, you made a foul. Oh well, guess what you're getting.
He's just like there to oversee.
Yeah.
So the third story involves the group of
Snow White and the Seven Whores.
Yeah. The group of women who are dressed up like Disney princesses, and starring Anna Paquin in this one.
Which we do run into them a couple of times before we get to this story. See them trying on their outfits and all that, and little boy perving on them.
We see how well their push-up bras are working.
They went like for the close shots for that.
In the opening sequences, yeah. But you get Anna Paquin, and you throughout like the other intertwined elements of the story, you understand that Anna Paquin is what they consider a virgin at 22. She hasn't, done anything, and so they're trying to on Halloween change that by getting her first man. And so you're expecting that to be just your normal everyday, she's, 22 and a virgin,
Loser!
Yeah. She's got to have sex.
Which I laughed at when you said, Anna Paquin, 22?
Yeah. But over the course of it, you kind of start to understand that that's not the case. And there's a nice reveal where she throws the vampire from the parade that we've seen in that other filler moment into the ring of fire that the other girls have, and they're already partying in the woods. And you get that reveal that, no, she's not just the helpless little girl who's a virgin. She's actually part of a group of werewolves. And
Lycans.
The lycanthropes.
Yeah. I almost think it would have been cooler if it was just like witches.
Instead of werewolves, witches?
Yeah, because the way that werewolf transformation plays out definitely hasn't aged well over the years.
Well, they did go with the Marilyn Manson Sweet Dreams cover, which has really played out.
Very passé.
Yeah. Pretty much shows up in a lot of 2000s era horror movies. House on Haunted Hill, you mentioned.
Well, that was 99. They were ahead of the curve.
Yeah, that's true. But yeah, it's one that shows up all the time, and you're right. I think that's one of those things that probably Michael Dougherty looks back and is like, yeah, wish I had not included that part.
Yeah, I think it would have been cooler if they were like a coven of witches.
One thing I
because
don't,
that's more that you associate witches more with Halloween than you do werewolves.
Yeah, I mean, I like the werewolf aspect because I still think of werewolves, vampires, witches, ghosts as the main ingredients of Halloween. So I get that. There are no witches in this, which is, kind of surprising. You would expect there to be witches at least. So yeah, that's one element that they really missed in terms of like Halloween festivities. But I mean, I don't mind the werewolf thing. I don't think that the designs of the werewolves are that great. Like, I don't like werewolves that, and this is my personal preference for me, but I don't like werewolves that are mostly wolf-like, because these werewolves are mostly like wolves.
Mostly what?
Wolf-like.
There you go.
Wolf-like. Wolf-like. These basically are like mostly wolves that are like, they're in their design. And
looks like Sky, like when you turn into a werewolf in Skyrim.
Right. I wish they had gone with more, howling-like werewolf design. And also, I would say that the puppeteering of the werewolves isn't that great in this movie. But other than that, like, I don't mind the werewolves so much. I just think that, yes, the Sweet Dreams montage is something that has not aged well with this film. It would have been better off just set to like the atmospheric score that was already done for the movie.
Yeah, because it comes out of nowhere. You don't see like any other alt rock song, alt metal song thrown in.
Yeah,
for the next story, he accompanied by Mudvayne.
One thing that I do love about this story, though, is that fucking path filled with jack-o'-lanterns that Anna Paquin walks down. It's awesome.
Nice leafy road.
It's great. It's like, that is the epitome of Halloween to me.
And now we get come full circle because turns out the Midnight Creeper, Steve Wilkins.
Yeah. I like when they reveal that and she asks for his name and he's like, Stephen Wilkins. Stephen? Yeah, because there is that nice moment where he gets his comeuppance and you're like, yeah, you thought you were such a bad man with your vampire teeth.
Yeah, and her little plastic vampire teeth, and pulls them out.
Yeah.
So that begs the question: so did he stab her, the girl?
Well, I think he used the vampire teeth as because they are kind of sharp, like the teeth themselves, like the little canines. So I think he just used those as like little pinpricks. And then I think probably he murdered her in a different way without the teeth that we don't see when he like flashes his cape around.
So when he's not killing children and turning their skulls into jack-o'-lanterns, he goes on the prowl in like an Eyes Wide Shut like esque Carnival mask and cape, and murders women in the alleyway
after
filling them
guy.
up. He's very busy.
Well, let's face it. Stephen Wilkins, the principal, probably not getting a lot of tail.
Well, his wife is dead.
Yeah, that's true. But vampire Stephen Wilkins with a masquerade mask on.
It makes him so mysterious.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter who he is. He probably...
I just love the idea that he's doing all this crazy shit and then he runs into werewolves and he's like, this is fucking weird.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But I mean, I get it. They're werewolves, but, people actually do carve, skulls, people's skulls out and stuff. Serial killers and whatnot. That it has happened and stuff. Lichens, not real, but again,
yeah.
I don't know. It's just funny the idea that he's just some murderous guy. And he
happens to
runs into a pack of werewolves. I don't know, maybe because he was like getting a little excited when Anna Paquin was like standing over and grinding on him, like, oh, I like where this is going,
Yeah.
And then he looks around and sees all the other men that have been tied up and like slashed, and he's like, oh no.
Yeah. And then our last story brings us right around to the same element that we saw in the Stephen Wilkins opening story, except we see it from Brian Cox's point of view, who you like to say,
play a game.
yeah.
Is it Brian Cox or is it Rip Torn?
Yeah, this one, he looks a lot like Rip Torn.
It sounds a lot like Rip Torn.
Yeah, he does. And here he's playing like his most miserable old man character.
Ladies and gentlemen, the original Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah. With Brian Cox, too, this entire story seems based on a Tales from the Dark Side pilot episode on Halloween that was about a crotchety old man who refused to give out candy and then who is visited by a spirit that, a witch, actually. It's a witch that stops at his door and, plays tricks on him. Even to the point where it has the dog as a scary character who scares trick-or-treaters away. Literally, that's a Tales from the Dark Side episode, and that's also in Trick or Treat. I don't know if that's intentional. I don't know if it was,
Like I said, it probably is because, like I said, from the looks of it, there's a lot of little nice homages to.
I believe Romero wrote that episode, if I'm not mistaken, and I could totally be mistaken, but I believe that he wrote that episode, and so it's right out of, things have changed a little bit. Obviously, you have Sam in this one instead of a witch, but it's very, very similar to that Tales from the Dark Side episode, which I thought I should just point out. So you got Brian Cox, and this one in particular is an interesting story because it's mostly driven by Brian Cox. Most of the other stories in this are not just one character-driven story. They have multiple characters that can help, with all of the other lift work. But Brian Cox is really the only character in this one, and he's forced to kind of, sell the whole story, especially when you consider that the only other thing in it is Sam, a mystical spirit. So he's got a lot of work to do, and he does it pretty well, and he does it in like a believable, crotchety way. That's also sort of cemented in dark comedy and slapstick. Because you have those moments where when Sam attacks and he blows his hand off and then the hand is still moving around, he elicits that, "You've got to be fucking kidding me." It still has that comedy element to it. Whereas, it's sort of playing up the slapstick nature of it. It's playing up like the goofiness of Sam as a character being a living pumpkin. So you have both of those elements, and I think it works pretty well as a final storyline.
No, I agree. I like it. Some of those moments that you're talking about, like his disembodied parts walking around, stuff, kind of like a nice little like Evil Dead touch, Evil Dead 2 touch. I just love Brian Cox is always great. He's always a terrific delight. Hear him playing like Rip Torn is just great because he's just like an angry curmudgeon of a drunk.
Yeah,
who looks like he's been through hell and back. And the only thing he loves is his whiskey and his dog.
Spite. Got to get that right. You could think it's Spike.
I do love Spike. When he's yelling at Wilco when we see the playback of from his perspective though, that whole the exchange between him and Wilkins. He's like, "I'm an NRA member,"
Yeah, I've got an NRA membership in my pocket,
and I'll use I think the best part of this whole little short is when he gets up to the bedroom and you got the jack-o'-lantern that's fucking
just blasting with it fire,
and you see all written all around on his walls and like blood, like trick or treat.
Yeah, it's a good touch. And here again we do have what you were talking about, the razor blades and the candy, because Sam has put out candy on the stairwell, like rolly candy with razor blades and glass that's just like kind of dispersed on the stairs, which is a very like painful looking moment as he falls on it.
He goes ass over tea kettle after getting his Achilles sliced underneath the bed by Sam. He goes ass over tea kettle down the stairs and gets glass and shit all in his embedded in his hands.
Yeah, then he has to try to go and unlock his door with it, and you can see like all the glass still stuck in his fingers. It's a nice little tactile moment that you get there.
I will say the weakest part is when they reveal Sam's face with the bag off. That CGI just does.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like the whole design of Sam's face underneath the bag. I think it's way more effective when you just see the bag because you don't really know what's under there. It's just a bag. And so there's a nice, it's a callback to Friday the 13th with Baghead Jason.
Yep.
You have all of that. I think it would have been better to just leave it, or even just where they,
leave it cut a little part. You can see a little bit, maybe.
Yeah.
That way,
they leave that where his jaw's kind of hanging out, and I think that would have been fine. We didn't really need the full mask to come off. I think it's the reveal is a part of the weaker element of Sam's design. I think. I get that they wanted him to be a literal embodiment of Halloween as a jack-o'-lantern, but I think that the actual payoff doesn't work as much as it should. What with the design and how it looks and everything, I just it's not as effective as it could be. But other than that, I like the short. I think it's really effective. I like that the whole wraparound comes back to the Wilkins element where you see him at the window, screaming, "Help me, Wilkins!" Everything really comes together there at the end. And then after that, you have the nice, conclusion, which was another part of the wraparound story where you get back to the later that we saw at the beginning of the film.
With the audience speeding up.
And that's where you get all four of the stories that come together, in one scenario. They're all presented to you on the street where you're seeing all of those four kind of come together.
Which we did see all that in the beginning, but now it's all tied together now.
And
because
you didn't really know what you were seeing at that point, and now it's all makes sense to you.
I just love the fact that Brian Cox is saved by a candy bar.
Yeah.
As he's about to get stabbed by Sam's lollipop knife, he's got the candy bar in between his legs, and that's where he stabs him, and he's like, oh.
Yeah.
Thanks for the candy. Which, if I think so, that's like one of the Wilkins candy. So you know what? It's a good thing he didn't eat that. Otherwise, he would have been vomiting it up blood too. But then again, he's probably it's just a normal day for me.
Yeah, yeah. And then you have that whole moment at the end where he understands, oh shit, I got to give out candy now. That's what basically what my moral was of the story tonight.
And then we also see, which I do think it's a little heavy-handed, the whole. As after Sam leaves, you see in the fire, in his fireplace, as it's burning, a photo. It's a picture. It's the 8 kids and the bus driver.
Yeah.
What does it mean?
Do you think that that's not necessary? That you just would be able to understand that without needing to see the photos?
I think it's not. It's not the worst thing, but I do think it comes off a little heavy-handed.
I would have liked to have seen it where it didn't pan in as much on the photo. Where you just saw maybe a little snippet of the photo that he's burning. Mm-hmm. So you can see, the kids and stuff from afar. You didn't really need the zoom in of the full photo, and then you kind of pan off to see the bus driver where it's supposed to,
Even if they didn't show that, you could gather by the end of the film that he's the bus driver because everybody that's in the film has been connected to a story.
Yeah.
So the fact that we did see in that story, after the bus went off, into the quarry, that he survived.
And also, at the end of that bus story, you hear him get out of the water and he's wheezing. He's like, and then you have Brian Cox actually wheezing throughout that. So you should be able to gather that, to piece that together. I feel like they were just a little concerned that if they did not give you a actual context to it, you might miss it. And then wonder why at the end he's visited by the spirits from the bus. But, I think it might be a little bit heavy-handed and they could have left it, they didn't have to zoom right in on that photo.
It's not so super heavy-handed where it's offensive, but at the same time it's what I said when we got that, what does it mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. Whoa!
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think they could have left it off a little bit. I do like, though, that the spirits visit him even though he's already survived his encounter with Sam, because Sam is basically just upholding the rituals of Halloween. But that doesn't really give you the license to do whatever. Your past still comes back to haunt you in this movie. So despite the fact that he survived Sam's encounter, the spirits still have their own place in coming back on Halloween and, violently murdering him.
I think I saw Ted Danson in there, too.
Yeah. Yeah, there's always there's this moral to it that is sort of very similar to Creepshow and Tales from the Crypt. You got the morals within the stories that are centered around Halloween specifically.
I think the best part though, that whole ending where everything's connecting. We see the Rhonda with her wagon almost getting hit by the Audi of the werewolf girls after they just got done having their blood sex orgy thing. And speeding off to some other town. They had to make sure, though, that you saw that Audi front plate because they probably gave half the budget to this film,
Yeah.
And then we see the robot, the girl with the robot and the page boy, whatever the fuck costume. And as she's snuffing out that pumpkin, we see Sam, who was about ready to retire for the night. He's like, my work is not done yet.
Yeah. Yeah, you can almost see him I think it would have been funny if they had him turn away and then do a double take. Wait a second. She just fucking blew out that jack-o'-lantern. Yeah, it's got to be exhausting for him. He's like the Santa Claus of Halloween.
He's going home.
Yeah, November 1st, he's like, yeah, I'm going to the Bahamas.
Now, did you like how when Brian Cox gets visited by the 8 undead children that we don't get to see his fate, but as in the credits you get to see little comic panel snippets.
Yeah,
and they kind of like a flip book kind of rush through.
I think it's a good way to end it, to bring it again to wrap around to the beginning where you had that comic book opening. Otherwise, the comic book opening would have felt a little off. You wouldn't understand really why they did that opening. So I like that the ending,
other than just a homage Creepshow and have constantly for the stories later, earlier.
Yeah, I like that ending kind of brings it all together. Gives it a nice little bow to explain why they did that. I think it's good touch. And the one thing I'll say overall about Trick or Treat is that I like this film for Halloween because it is the epitome of Halloween. It has jack-o'-lanterns. It has werewolves. It has ghosts. It has zombies. It has a bright orange palette. It has orange text. It's all Halloween.
It has boobies.
And you could say Halloween the movie is Halloween-y in terms of how it's been associated with Halloween. But I would say Trick or Treat is the more definitive Halloween film.
Yeah, you've always argued about Halloween being not Halloween-y enough. It doesn't, really feel like
because
Halloween.
The low budget shows that it's not Halloween.
I guarantee you in 1979 a fucking pumpkin wasn't that expensive. John Carpenter's were just probably we're not doing it.
Yeah.
I don't feel like dealing with cutting all these pumpkins.
Yeah, I just think I love Halloween. I love the Halloween series, but I think Trick or Treat is the more definitive Halloween film. It just has everything that you think of with Halloween. Just perfect. Perfect encapsulation of it. Even the opening little safety video that you see.
From the 50s, Always walk on sidewalks, you little ghouls and goblins.
Bring your flashlights.
And don't go to strangers' houses.
Yeah, it's perfect. Everything is perfect. All right, so let's give a rating here on a scale of 0 to 10. Glenn McPherson cheap whiskey. What would you give Trick or Treat?
I'll give it an 8 out of 10.
All right,
it's a very good film. Whether the homages are intentional or not, I'm going to err on the side of caution and say they are. Greatly enjoy the homages. You're right. I definitely think out of probably many of films I've seen, it's definitely the most Halloween-y film. It's definitely got the great, best atmosphere, constantly just dark and fog, constantly rolling in, the jack-o'-lanterns and all the leaves, and just the way it looks is real. I love the aesthetics, I think, especially for a mid-2000s film, horror film, is really, really good. I think all the stories are interesting and well done. I will say the weakest story of the bunch is Anna Paquin's werewolf story. It's the shortest one and least really that has anything going for it. But all the other stories I really enjoyed, and some of them have a nice, very dark humor tone to them. At 82 minutes, it's a nice brisk watch. You don't ever feel like you're getting slogged through things. Though, as I said earlier, it's not really, I'm not saying it's a handicap, but I do think if you haven't seen this before, and if you do expect it to be a traditional anthology, it's not that. It's a very non-linear story that kind of straddles off what an anthology is. But overall, I think it's very good. I would definitely add this to my Halloween rotation for films to watch.
I would give it a 9 out of 10. I love this film. I've seen it so many times. I watch it every year. It's pretty much an annual tradition. Watch it with friends. I created a drinking game for it that's on Cultsploitation. If you're interested, I'm sure we'll post it again for Halloween on Facebook. So I know this movie, and every time you kind of notice something a little bit different about it. I've always noticed, various things as I'm watching it. One thing that stands out to me is when Sam has his little bag that he's carrying down the stairs. It squeaks.
You hear the cat.
Yeah, you hear like the cat squeaking in it. Just things like that you notice all the time. And so I really love this film. It just has a lot of great atmosphere to it. If you're a person like me who loves Halloween, it basically has everything that you could ask for. And really the only thing that we're waiting on now is Trick or Treat too. You've seen Trick or Treat so many times, you kind of want to branch out from there and see what else is on offer for us. So we need more Halloween specific movies.
He's going to do what Eli Roth has not been able to do yet. He's going to do Thanksgiving.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he's covered Halloween. He's covered Christmas. What about the territory in between? Got to get that.
He's going to do a real proper remake of My Bloody Valentine.
That's right. Yeah. Believe in Michael Dougherty. I haven't seen the new Godzilla. I do want to see it because he directed it. I've heard mixed reviews, but you know what? Godzilla is fun. I'm definitely interested in it. All right, so we've got one more episode for everybody for Antholoween.
Dun, dun, dun.
And this one is a 2010s film. We're going forward to 2010s. And it's another anthology, obviously. And it's another one set on Halloween. And it's a more traditional anthology as well. So that should really give it away. I mean, I don't know that anybody can think of very many films. I think there are a couple anthologies set on Halloween. So give it a guess, and I think you'll know what I'm talking about. And then that's it. Then Halloween is here, which is kind of crazy. I can't believe that it's already almost Halloween. Although we have been doing this since September, so we've been doing quite a few Halloween episodes. So check out our episode next time. It'll be the last one for Halloween, and then we'll continue on. We'll keep going with episodes until we get to our Christmas season, because we always do a lot of stuff for Christmas as well. So thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time. Find us on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbean, pretty much every podcasting app we're on. So find us on there, subscribe and like us and leave us a nice review. We're on Facebook at facebook.com/Blood and Black Rum Podcast. We're on Twitter at Blood and Black Rum. We have an email address at bloodandblackrumpodcast@gmail.com. And always you can donate to us on Patreon at patreon.com/Blood and Black Rum Podcast. If you like what we're doing and you want to hear more of it, please donate to us so that we can keep the podcast running. Also, before we end this episode, I just wanted to mention that we're probably going to go out and see movies like Joker and the new Jay and Silent Bob. And if you would be interested, we might do minisodes of some of those films that we don't have enough time to cover in full, or that we just don't think that there's enough interest to cover in full. So something like Jay and Silent Bob, we might do like a little minisode on, just a quick brief review of it. So if you're interested in that, we might do that. Might make it available on Patreon. So just keep that in mind. Let us know if you're interested in that. But hopefully we'll go out and see some of those. And we had talked about maybe doing El Camino as well. I don't know. I know you've already seen it. I haven't seen it yet, but
Well, you know what? Netflix is going to take it down before you know it.
So that's a possibility as well. But we're toying with the idea of doing minisodes if we get the time. So something to look forward to. All right. So next week we're back with another and the final episode of Antholoween, and we hope to see you then.
Take care.